general fund revenue over the last 5 years, and it's broken out by source. So you can see that property taxes is the largest source of revenue, and it also had the largest increase this year. And that's primarily due to an increase in taxable value in the city. This graph is similar to the previous one, but this one is general fund expenditures broken out by category over the last 5 years. You can see for the most part, the expenditures by category are fairly consistent year over year. The one change you will see is general government had an increase this year. That increase was primarily due to some higher personnel costs. And this graph breaks out the general fund's fund balance dating back to 2011. And so for each year, the yellow portion of the bar represents the unassigned portion of the general fund's fund balance, and the gray portion represents the fund balance that is designated for future expenditures. So you'll see there was a decent increase in fund balance this year, but a good amount of that increase is designated for future expenditures. So of that $7 million of total fund balance, about $4.6 million of that is designated for particular uses, so restricted, committed, or assigned fund balance. And those are all, that $4.6 million is broken out in Note 12 to the financial statements. This one shows capital expenditures over the last 6 years, broken out by type. So there was a significant increase in capital expenditures this year, from $1.9 million last year to about $4.9 million this year. So that $4.9 million is similar to the prior 2 years before last year. And the primary reason for the increase was an increase in road projects, and you can see that with the increase in the red portion of the bar for 2021. And this graph breaks out the taxes paid by principal residences and non-principal residences. You'll see the only difference between the two charts is the school operating millage for 18 that is not paid by principal residences. And this graph shows a mills levied comparison, which compares Saline's mills to neighboring communities. And so Saline is represented by the red line on the graph. As you can see, dating back several years, Saline's been very consistent and similar to the other neighboring communities, particularly Milan and Ann Arbor.
The next graph here represents a comparison between taxable value and state equalized value since 2011. And the idea here is basically this is the difference of what could have been taxed if not for the state law. And so the difference there foregone is about a little over 11 million since 2011. The next slide shows the recreational complex fund for the last 5 years. You'll see that the last 2 years revenue has been quite a bit lower than in the past. Just to make that clear, that is COVID related, that obviously there's quite a bit less activity there as a result of that. The water fund over the last 5 years as well is shown on the next slide. Operating revenue, relatively consistent, went down a little bit this year due to a reduction in rates. So that is down about 9.2%. And operating expenses are similarly down about 9.7% due to a little less usage. The next slide shows the sewer fund. This year the rate went up slightly, so operating revenue was up 23.8%, while operating expenses are down 5.8%. I would note that in conversations with the city, there are plans in place and working on plans to make sure that you have appropriate fund balance moving forward for the water and sewer funds and the various projects that you will need moving forward. The last slide I would like to cover here represents the unfunded legacy costs. So here you see the pension and the OPEB net liabilities. And the first column there, that darker blue for pension, is what's currently represented on the financial statements. And all these balances are based on quite a few different assumptions, and the purpose of this slide is just to show how large an impact there can be from just changing one of those. So in this case, you have the discount rate for the pension of 7.6%. And if that were to decrease to 6.6%, the pension liability would increase by over $3 million. Similarly, for OPEB, you have the balance of just under $1.2 million as reflected on the financial statements. If that were to increase 1% from 8.5% to, apologies, that should read 9.5%, that would go up about $1.4 million. So again, just the concern there, and the point is to make sure that you're looking at those assumptions, make sure that the city stays on top of those. There is help from the actuary as well, but just wanted to point out that those can have significant impacts.
And with that, the last document that's in front of you is the post-audit letter. It is broken up in three different sections. I was going to just go over them briefly. So section 1, which starts on page 2, is basically a response to the pre-audit letter that you would have received a couple of months back. We're happy to report there's no significant items that to report to you. There's no disagreements with management, nothing of significance that we noted. The one item that we do want to point out is that during the year, you did implement GASB 84, which was required by all governments this year. And what that means is that your fiduciary activities are slightly differently presented than in the past, but overall there's no impact to the overall numbers and budgets that you have in place. Starting on page, if I can get to it, page 6 are general recommendations that we have for you. These are just general items, so you'll notice that there's only 3 sections to this letter. Sometimes we do have a 4th section, which would be of items that would be of significance that we noted during the audit, particularly if we had adjustments to the financial records to make sure that they're in compliance with applicable accounting standards. There is no such section here. These are just minor items that we will have general recommendations instead. So password change requirement, to making sure that the city implements password requirements to be changed every so often. Online banking account information, making sure that passwords are not shared among employees to access bank accounts. And then regular vendors, making sure that just setting up with the banking system to make sure that there's no fraudulent activity or anything like that when making payments and cutting checks, etc. But again, nothing that we noted that was an issue or anything like that. These would just be to tighten up some of the security measures within the city. And then section 3 are just general legislative items that are happening around the state that we wanted to point out to. One item that I did want to highlight is the COVID-19 Resource Center and ARPA, the very top on page 7. We do have a dedicated website at Plant Moran that provides updates regularly to these, just overall the ARPA and other matters related to COVID-19. We just want to make sure that you're aware of it, so that way as the developments occur, especially how you can utilize the money that we receive from the government, that you can have something to fall back on here. A couple other items I did want to point out too. On page 11, Josh already mentioned the OPEB and pension liabilities, the net pension liability, and what your funding percentage is. I did want to highlight that overall your pension plan is about 70%, 70 funded, and OPEB is about 87%. You did see a significant jump this year, actually in both. Very good returns over the last year on the investments. So regardless, there were some assumption changes and some other items that affected the liabilities, but overall the biggest improvement was because the net investment income was pretty significant this past year. And then the last item is on the very last page, I believe. It talks about new accounting standards that are going to be coming through over the next year. And there's a new lease standard that's going to be put in place for all governments. So what that means is if you have any leases that are outstanding, they'll have to actually be represented on your balance sheet as an asset and a liability. In the past, it's just a payment as you're making the payments. Looking at it overall for the city, very likely there's going to be very minimal effect, but just want to make sure that you're aware that it's going to be something that we're going to be looking at. So that's all I had. That's all we had. If you have any questions, we're happy to address those. Overall, I did want to point out that just working with communities, and I do want to say that commend the city for being very forward-thinking. And as you're strategizing over the years, you're not looking just 12 months ahead. You're very strategic in your approach. Your fund balance and everything, you're definitely planning ahead for the capital expenditures, especially in the future. And I do have to say that makes you stand out quite a bit, because looking ahead more than 12 months is definitely something to be commended for.
Very good. Martin, thank you very much. Gentlemen, why don't you hang tight? Treasurer Bennett, is there anything that you'd like to add at this time?
I don't believe so.
Okay. City Manager O'Toole? Good. Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh?
I just had a couple items that I had them review for us because of past practices and issues. So one of them had to do with permits. We had a backlog in terms of building permits and making sure those occur. And hopefully that will be addressed. And I believe they reviewed that and felt that we have a plan in place. I just think that we may need to consider how fast that is going to be occurring to get resolved. There were a couple other items regarding comp time, the ability of the handling of accounts receivable at the rec center, and compliance with regards to code violations and the timely resolution of those. And for the most part, all those were handled properly and our controls and things are in place. So overall, felt that that was a good audit, and thank you, gentlemen, for verifying that information.
We'll go right down the line. Mr. Del Orco, any questions?
I just wanted to seek some further clarification on the unfunded legacy cost slide about this discount rate. What defines the discount rate, and what would cause that to fluctuate in any way?
So, discount rate is, in your position, really built off of the investment rate of return. The idea here is that for both pension and OPEB, the actuary has made the assumption based on the city's plan and the city's assumptions, really, that there will be enough contributions moving forward, and the assets already in place will be enough to cover the liabilities as they come due. So this liability that you see of 9.2, while there's not currently enough in the system, the plan for the city is to continue to contribute that. So that 7.6 really represents that investment rate of return. And again, that's long-term. That's not meant to be over the next year. So you'll see above, you'll see below, but the city has made the assumption that 7.6% is what's going to be used moving forward. I do want to back up just a second here, because really with your pension system, that is through MERS. And so the city doesn't have as much control over that particular assumption. Okay. Whereas in OPEB, while it's still with MERS, the retiree health funding vehicle there, you do have control over those assumptions a little bit more strongly, so you could alter that, which is why if you looked enough in the letter that Martin was going over, there is a slightly different rate of return assumption for OPEB, which is slightly more conservative than the rate of return for pension.
Okay, so it really is tied to benchmark market conditions, and the numbers you provided here are based on an amalgam of years of historical data or just current market conditions?
Yeah, it's I'd have to look into, I'm not exactly sure how MERS exactly put that together, but typically it's looked at, looking forward and saying, okay, over the next 20 years, what do we think is going to happen with the market? These are definitely looked at as long-term rates of return.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you,
One
Council.
other comment to add to that is that, so you mentioned, like, is it a 1 year kind of thing? So yes, it is long-term. It's also based on historical information as well. So the last couple of years, there have been adjustments by MERS to change that percentage a little bit, because the market has been changing with it, but it's not, year over year, you're not going to see significant changes, because it's smoothing effect over the years.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Councilmember Dillon, any questions?
No, I believe that I shared some of the same concerns that Mr. Gearbaugh has already addressed. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Seal?
Nothing new, Your Honor.
Councilmember Kamir Sulak?
Nothing additional.
And Councilmember Kraus?
Nothing additional.
Easy enough, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you for your service.
Thank you so
Another
much for having
successful
us.
audit in the books.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to transition to our second and last presentation of the evening, which is the Green Thumb Awards. I will let Director Scruggs kick it off, along with Chuck Lesh, who serves as our Parks and Rec chairperson, and perhaps I could also invite Councilmember Dillon forward as the council liaison from City Council to help present the awards and certificates. So, Director Scruggs, are you going to begin, or is
I'm going to
Chairperson Lesh?
have our chairperson, Chuck Lesh, handle this. Ben, I can't get our presentation up.
Well, I'll start talking while Carla is trying to get that up.
It's not switching.
Thank you for having us here tonight. Always a pleasure to address the City Council. And one of our favorite duties on the Park Commission to recognize those people in Saline who step forward to make our city a more beautiful place. The Green Thumb Award is, I believe, in its 26th or 27th year now, so it's got a long precedence in the city of Saline. And this year we actually had 30 properties that were nominated and 2 businesses for a total of 32 properties. Actually, a little bit of a decrease from last year, which I think last year everybody was in kind of a COVID post euphoria to get their landscaping done, but a good crop of nominations this year. And again, for those that don't know the nominating process, this is a citizen-driven project where people will nominate their neighbors, various people around town to that they are impressed with, and then the Park Commission, once we have all the nominations in place, will actually vote on the winners of the, and again, of the many, well, not so many things as City Council, but the few things that we do on the Park Commission, you know, trying to pick the best ones out of all those nominations is always a hard task. So we appreciate all of those nominations that we got this year, and hopefully we can get it up because some of these are very impressive. There we go. All righty. First up, we have here we go.
Thanks, Ben.
First up, a very lovely display from Becky Fox on Willis Road. Becky, if you want to come on up. Maybe I'll have Councilwoman Dillon. And we'll, oh, if you could flip it around and we will. And if you want to just hang out up here for just a couple of minutes. Next up, we have Rebecca and Michael Godek on Bannock Court. Come on up. And I think you can all tell, some of these were very... Yep. Next up, we have, well, Frank is here representing the family tonight. Frank Smolinski on Hollywood Drive. And I'm sure Susan probably contributed to the process too. All right, and the last of the residentials, I have to say, this I think was a new one for us. Angel Klickner from in the, is Angel here? Oh, but this, I don't know if we've ever had a nomination from this. This is actually in the Saline Mobile Home community, and you know, it really goes to show that anywhere in Saline, I mean, they have done amazing things with their landscaping. So we will make sure Angel will get this certificate. And last but not least, we do separate out the businesses from the residentials, obviously. And this year, the Saline Area Senior Center was the winner for the business awards. So I believe we got Andrea Lewis and Kathy Lawless with us tonight to get the certificate for the senior center. And I don't know if it's permitted, Mr. Mayor, but could I ask the audience for a round of applause for this wonderful... Righty, and if I could ask all of the winners, we're going to adjourn out to the lobby, and we will let the city go on with their important business they have to do.
Very good. Thank you, Chairperson Lesh. And congratulations to our winners. Thank you for your continuing efforts to beautify Saline. It is acknowledged and greatly appreciated. Okay, we move on to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion. Move to approve as submitted, Mr. Seal? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kamara Sulak. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 21-220. This is pension and OPEB reporting 2021. This will be a motion to receive and file the pension and OPEB form for the state of Michigan.
Motion to receive and file.
Okay, we'll let Kraus be the mover to receive and file. And Mr. Gearbaugh, are you willing to second that?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Treasurer Bennett, any obligatory comments for the record this evening?
No, I just, real quickly, just wanted to say, as just presented in our audit slide, we did make great headway on our OPEB. We are at, through the state reporting, we're at 88.6. And just as a little quick follow-up, when we do this reporting to the state of Michigan, we have to do a rate of return or a discount rate for year in the actuarial, so MERS provides those numbers, for years 1, 5, and 10. So the state of Michigan is always looking out that far on that. But that's all I had to say.
Very good. Hang tight because you're up next for the audit report as well. Is there any discussion or questions for the city treasurer? There appears to be none. Then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of receiving and filing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 21-221. This is 2021 audit report. This will be a motion to receive and file the 2021 audit report from Plant Moran.
Move to receive and file.
Moved by Dillon to receive and file. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seo. Again, Treasurer Bennett, any comments for the record this evening?
Nope.
Okay, easy enough. Were there any additional questions or comments for the record pertaining to the 2021 audit? Mayor Pro Tem Gearbaugh.
Just a comment, there was a couple of recommendations that were on this that were on last year's that I've asked the city manager to address more of a formal plan, so she agreed to do that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for doing that. Any additional comments, questions for the record? There are none. Thank you, Ms. Bennett. All those in favor of receiving and filing the 2021 audit signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 21-222. This is Downtown Winter Event. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the November 9th, 2021 memo from City Manager O'Toole and to approve or not to approve the request from Saline Main Street for the closure of South Ann Arbor Street and the use of West McKay Street and North Ann Arbor Street for Winter Wonderland Weekend.
Motion to acknowledge and approve.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara Sulak. It's been moved by our council colleague to acknowledge and to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Del Orco. I will begin with the City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in the packet is my memo along with a proposal from Saline Main Street for closure of South Ann Arbor Street from Friday evening until Monday morning, with activities predominantly occurring on Saturday and Sunday. In addition to the proposal, I did pass out earlier this evening some letters of support and a summary of participating businesses and the activities that they will be hosting during that weekend. We did take a look at this in terms of DPW staff time. We determined that it was a relatively low-impact activity for us. We would not be placing the heavy-duty barricades. We'd be placing the temporary barricades because it's a short-term closure that allows us for easier access in the event of an emergency. We do have support, a letter of support that was shared from Police Chief Hart, and Fire Chief Spurley has reviewed the plan and provided his sign-off as well. If there are any other questions, I don't know if Holly Andrews has an additional presentation, but we do have representatives from Main Street available as well.
Yes, very good. Thank you, City Manager O'Toole. And yes, for the record, we did receive comments from the police chief, the fire chief, and then there were some supplemental materials passed out, a letter from White Pine Studio, Enchanted Oven, Fine Print Bookshop, as well, indicating their support for the proposed Winter Wonderland plan. Director Andrews or Board Chair Durnan, would you care to comment at this time?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for giving us the time today to talk about this fun event that we wanted to use to enhance the parade that the Chamber puts on every year. We are grateful for them and all their work putting this together. And a couple Tuesdays ago, we met with downtown businesses. Retail were the main core of the people that came out for that meeting. And we talked about the fact that, 3,000 plus people come to the downtown for that parade, but they leave afterwards because it's cold. So we thought that we could do something that would make downtown Saline a place where they'd want to stay a little bit longer and hopefully just really get them excited to keep coming for food and for shopping and whatnot, and also just to make memories for that weekend.
Very good. Thank you. I think it's a very good plan. I will be strongly in support of the motion when we proceed to vote. Are there questions for the either our guests from Saline Main Street or for the city manager? Let me begin with Councilmember Seal.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I see that there is a Christmas tree at the head of the 100 block of South Ann Arbor Street. Is the main Christmas tree still going to be at Key Bank?
Yeah, and actually I did remove that tree from so the updated plan doesn't have the tree. That way we will make more of an inclusive area that doesn't designate one holiday over the other.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Councilmember Dillon.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions, Ms. Andrews. It's more about the closure, and I just want to clarify, is it a closure or is it a shared road for the horse and buggy rides? So that would be McKay and North Ann Arbor.
Oh, yeah. So that we aren't closing those streets. No, that's not part of the proposal.
Okay. Does it need any additional guidance, assistance from police or anything like that? You're just going to make, I understand from the drawing that it's just sort of a loop through the parking lot out into the roadway.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no concern with cars and horses?
No, they would come to the stop sign, and if cars are going by, they would wait for them and just enter as normal traffic would, but it's very small. It just go as far as Hartman's driveway and then back in, so.
My only concern, the reason I ask was that there's an article, I believe, in the Sun-Times that mentions road closures and shuttle buses for people coming into town, and there was no mention of that at all in this article and in these documents, and so I wasn't sure whether there was just some miscommunication about that.
That's definitely never been even thought of by any of us. That's not at all. Shuttle buses is nothing. Yeah.
Like I said, you may want to contact the Sun-Times because I believe their article directly spoke about shuttle buses from Bushes to McKay Street.
I don't know what that would be.
Sorry. I think that's for the parade. I think people who want to come to the parade can park at Bushes and get shuttled to town. If we have the horse and buggy ride, that's only on Sunday.
Right.
So it would be a different day completely.
Well, I just don't want people to be confused
Oh, okay.
as to how that's going. And
Okay.
also, if people are taking a shuttle, they're not going to be spending much time in the downtown. And so I want to be clear about that so there isn't a lot of confusion. I want people to understand that there's activities beyond the parade. And, and we do have ample parking within the city.
Well,
Yeah, we'll be promoting a lot as soon as it's okay to do
Right.
so.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that.
Any additional questions for the city manager or for our guests from Saline Main Street? Mr. Sulak, please.
Thank you. Actually, it's more of a comment in nature. I really think this is a great forward-thinking way to help the businesses in the community, and like you said, to make memories. Fantastic marketing strategy. Looks like you put a lot of work into this, and I can't wait to see the breakdown of the hours and all the details, because I think people are really going to be excited for this. And I'd like to get on that list for the horse and buggy rides. So, what is the time frame for that? So I can get on that list for a friend, not for me.
We'll bring all the finalized details together shortly.
Great. Thank you for all your work on this.
Councilmember Kraus.
Thank you. I just want to say I love this idea. As someone who loves Christmas and starts putting it up way too early and who's watched way too much Gilmore Girls over my life, I'm very excited. I'm happy to see that Chief Spurley and Chief Hart both weighed in before I make my decision. But I will be very much supporting this, and I love what you have done, thinking out of the box and just really trying to support Main Street. I like to see what you're doing.
Thank you. And I want to say it's really nice to have Lynn Thomas Perry with the chamber and to be working with her as well. It'll be a really great collab.
Any additional questions from the dais? Subsequent discussion on the motion. Mr. Gearbaugh?
I previously asked to make sure that we weren't seeing significant use of DPW, and City Manager O'Toole mentioned that agreed with it would be insignificant. I was concerned because we still have issues to deal with water quality and leak pickup, and so I don't want to have any additional time that would distract from resolving those issues as soon as possible. Thank you.
Very good. Ladies, thank you very much. Appreciate it. If there's no additional discussion, there is a motion on the floor moved by Camara Sulak, seconded by Del Orco to acknowledge and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you again. We move on to new business item 21-223. This is a short-term rental resolution. This will be a motion to approve and adopt or not to approve the resolution opposing Michigan House Bill 4722 and Michigan Bill, actually, just for future reference, Senate bills are always 3 digits. You don't need the 0 there. 466, 2001, redistricting local control of short-term rentals.
Move to approve and adopt.
Moved by Gearbaugh to approve and to adopt. Was that seconded by CO?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Green, do you care to comment?
Thank you, sir. First, if I can make one quick amendment, it should be Senate Bill 446, not 466. Accidental typo in the header of the resolution. The rest of the body of it works perfect. For those of you that do not know, there is bills going through the House and Senate right now that would restrict local government control over short-term rentals. So what essentially the state is trying to do is make it so cities cannot have zoning ordinance regulations over these type of units. Naturally, it doesn't affect the city of Saline right now, as we don't regulate these and we don't have a lot of these throughout the city, but a lot of communities in Michigan do, and it is a lifeblood for their community having some control. These bills would take that control away from us, besides just enforcing typical nuisance violations, which we can do already, but that's what the state is currently trying to do. And naturally, with this opposition, we just want to keep some control that we still have.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Gearbaugh, I think you brought this to council and staff's attention via an article or an update that appeared in the either the Ease newsletter or the paper copy of the Michigan Association of Planners. Is there anything that you would like to add at this time?
Yeah, this has been an attempt for the last almost 2 or 3 years to try and get this passed. It's really an attempt to just continue to take away local authority, and unfortunately, the controlling party in the House and the Senate believe that they are needing to do this as a way to basically allow for a way to get these to be able to be done anywhere without any restriction or control. This is a concern because I think a number of homes and issues in Ann Arbor have realized that this has become a problem, jurisdictions, we should be able to control who we are, and not necessarily have the state telling us. That's the idea behind small local government, is that we enforce our own aspects, and this is a approach, and this should not be passed.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Are there questions for either Mr. Green or Mr. Gearbaugh? Appears to be none. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Dillon?
I just want to thank Mr. Gearbaugh for bringing this forward. This is an issue that I've been following very closely. It's always in the top reports coming out of MML, and it is very important for local government to maintain this control. And I think we're fortunate right now that our state representatives are in support of this. Because there are a lot that are not right now, and it can be very detrimental to communities if they lose control of this.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Appears to be none. Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by CO to approve and to adopt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 21-224. This is water meter changeout. So as I may have alluded to earlier, I've had conversations with several of my council colleagues regarding this issue. I followed up and had a focused discussion this morning with City Manager O'Toole. And because of the dollar amount, because of the cost of this change, and also the nature of it, which is a pretty fundamental departure from the way we've conducted business over the past several decades, I think that it's appropriate just to have a discussion this evening to address whatever questions, concerns you may have tonight, and then to revisit this issue in, I believe it's a 3-week time period, when we reconvene again at our next regular council meeting on December 6th. So that would give folks about 3 weeks to raise additional questions and concerns either to the city manager or DPW director. So unless there's questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to City Manager O'Toole to begin the discussion, and then I think she'll yield the floor to DPW Director Sherrills.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as Mayor Marl indicated, our expectation this evening is, one, to present this opportunity to council, understanding that this is a new technology and a shift from current practices, but is something that Director Searles and I are in agreement in terms of presenting. So we welcome the conversation, we welcome your questions and feedback. We're more than willing to do additional due diligence, but wanted to start the conversation very clearly making a recommendation for what our next course of action should be. Director Searles, if you'd like to add anything.
Good evening, Council. First, I want to say we titled this meter changeout, but we're talking about an overall complete program, and it is changing the meter. It is changing how we would receive our reads. It would eliminate man hours as far as physical reads, but we're also going to be hitting a compliance with Eagle on lead and copper inspection. We're also going to be getting an interior plumbing assessment. We're also going to be getting a customer-facing two-way communicating dashboard, which already has proven to integrate with BS&A, which we have in our billing system and our work order system. What I vision with this is, as we're going through the survey on the discolored water or water quality issues, this gives us a record by address of what's been going on with a date timestamp, and it gives us our two-way correspondence with the residents. We have all the capital projects coming up for the spring. This is our communication platform. We invite the residents in. We have the town hall, whether it's a street or a water main. We get them to sign up. We have every way of communicating with them at the computer, as far as whether they want it by email or text message or phone call. We're going to be able to go back and forth without a lot of effort. It's not just meter change out. It's the meter change out, the customer dashboard, and it puts tools in the customer's hand that they don't have right now. You're away on vacation, you can program your smart meter, to call it, to send you an alert. If we're 3 months, 4 months away from being able to identify leaks in the system right now. We go out in our quarterly reads, Next thing you know, one of our residents has a $500 to $5,000 water bill. This eliminates that. It's not just a meter change out. And I do have some data, and I would be happy to share it. You look at a 20-year-old meter, its read accuracy is so low on the smaller sizes, right? Then you look at a compound meter. It takes 8 gallons of water to transfer the chambers. A lot of you see Sloan valves everywhere, right? So the toilet flushes with a Sloan valve. 25 gallons per minute flushes through. A compound meter wants to change to the high flow chamber. Well, 8 gallons, it's already done flushing by the time it changes. None of that water was metered. So what we look at is building uses change. We're not really telling everyone what they need to put in their building for use. It could be a turbine meter, which doesn't read the low flows, a compound meter, which has known accuracy issues in between the chambers, or a nutating disc. On the high end, it wears out fast. It's moving. We have a hodgepodge right now, and we have very old meters. The smaller ones lose accuracy. That's not saying that we have to charge the right amount to maintain the system, but I think we need to be billing the right amount to make sure that everyone's paying their fair portion, right? If your meter's reading 58% accurate and the other meter's reading 100% accurate, well, we're not paying our fair freight. Moving away from walking saves us about 24 man-hours a week on average. That's just in reading. Right. We also have final reads. We have issues with high reads and rechecks. All that comes to the computer. I mean, maybe one day we may want to bill monthly. This puts that tool in our hands. And we got a price, I'm guessing, it was before I got here, over a year ago, from Ferguson as Neptune, and just to purchase this stuff, just to purchase the meters was $800,000. That wasn't putting them in. And there is absolutely no feasible way our staff is going to get this program in place efficiently. We have Lair Farms, Maple Oaks, a couple more phases of construction going on. We have a lot of homes coming online, and we would reap the benefits of getting the system in. The meter that we're looking at, the master meter, is actually warranted for 10 years. The Neptune, so we have master meters in the system now. We have Octaves, we have Badger, we have Neptune. With the Neptune meter, it's warranted for 5 years. The remote reader's warranted for 5 years. I wouldn't suggest a remote reader. We're at a different age. It's not about put the meter in and run it to failure. We've got to come out of run it to failure processes. We got to get in best practices, and we are under an obligation to do a residential cross connection inspection every 10 years. It's a beautiful warranty. They warranty it for 10 years. So we would be ahead of just changing out meters.
Very good. A lot of good information there. It seems like if implemented and managed appropriately, it could benefit the DPW and the city more broadly in innumerable ways. So good to know. You threw a lot at us. Let me start with Mr. Delorco. Do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Larry, one of my first pressing questions as I was reading over some of the material is, as you talk about that warranty, which at face value seems very attractive, does that cover the whole entire meter replacement or just the cost of the battery? The whole meter. So if at any point over the course of 10 years...
There's a 5-year replacement and then a 5-year repair and then a prorated portion after that.
Okay. All right, that's important to highlight. I have a number of concerns around contemplating moving forward with this. Chief among them is being that this was presented to us as one bid with one contractor. absent of any sole source justification, and there doesn't appear to be any memo associated with the ask. And obviously, I read Mr. Grossman's email and listened to some of his comments. This is a $1.7 million investment in a capital improvement. And I do think that even if we end up opting to move forward with this, it certainly is worth soliciting some more information about our current investment and our current meters. We encountered situations in the past where we've gone out and we've changed things that were in perfectly good working order with new and updated technologies that ended up not being as good as what we had to begin with. And that weighs heavily on me. The fact that these batteries aren't going to last beyond 12 years, and they're going to have to go back in and replace all these meters again, that's a hidden cost behind the original $1.7 million that you're saying we'll have to invest, and an annual payment of close to $200,000 a year. So I think if I could respectfully ask that this be my colleagues and the mayor to unpack this a little further and consider this at a work meeting maybe. I have a laundry list of questions. I need more time to digest the technology and the materials that are going into this. It's a significant investment, and it's particularly concerned about it because it's not coming out of the general fund. It's going to be levied upon our ratepayers. And we're contemplating this in parallel with making significant upgrades to our wastewater treatment plant. And all these things coming on the backs of the ratepayers at once could be overwhelming.
Okay, and that's the uniqueness of this package is the financing arm. There's the large capital investment. We would spend with Neptune, and this is a year-old price. I have an email from October 28th talking about the significant increase in their pricing for their meters, which is already more than the master meter. We're over $800,000 to buy them. We haven't put them in yet. That's why I was coming as a discussion, so we could get all the questions and answers out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But from my understanding, we can leverage our current technology and make upgrades to what we already have in place to accomplish this AMI radio telemetry communication and allow us the capability of information sharing on-hand monthly billing as opposed to quarterly billing without changing the entire system over. And that's been we've been approached with requests to make those upgrades several times over the last decade, and we just haven't done it. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If we can look at least consider the option of what Neptune can do with the technologies that we have in place, I think that's worth doing.
Okay.
I appreciate those comments, and just to reiterate for the record, it would be wildly inappropriate to take any formal action this evening. My recommendation is I suspect there'll be some supplemental material regarding this issue distributed through the city manager's office or DPW between now and our next meeting. I would either add this as, well, I think it would probably be appropriate to add it as a discussion item at our next meeting. Certainly we can offer and entertain a motion to the floor if there's desire at that point in 3 weeks to act on this. If not, we can certainly organize a work meeting for sometime later in December or after the first of the year. And this is somewhat time sensitive, but our back isn't up against a wall. We do have time to be thoughtful and strategic, and as a legislative body, we ought to be. So thank you for those comments, Mr. Delorco. Mayor Pro Tem Gearba, anything that you'd like to add this time?
Yeah, and as I discussed with the mayor this week, it was a similar approach to that and concerns that I had with what Mr. Delorco has mentioned. My concern being, of course, is the rate increase and how that's going to be all planned out and just understanding. I fully support whatever we need is the best and works the best for us. And I think this is a great idea. Thank you for bringing this forward, because I know we've talked about it for a decade and it really hasn't moved forward because of the resources and needs that we have. And it's forward thinking and it's what we need to do, but I do agree that we need to have a little more information just to understand, especially a $200,000 hit every year to our rate increase, and understanding if we will have enough usage that'll be spread among our new users and so Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward, and we'll discuss more.
Very good. Councilmember Dillon.
Thank you. I think Mr. Gearbaugh and I are on the same page tonight. I have the same concerns. I do want to reiterate what Mr. Del Orco just said, is that I do think that this definitely warrants a work meeting and kind of, you know, look a little bit deeper into this. My ask would be sort of a pros and cons, financial, where are we now, as far as man hours, what are we going to gain, you know, and sort of see that as a dashboard approach to look at these numbers. And I don't know if there is a bidding process, and we should be looking at other vendors also for it, just for our own clarification of the process. Like Mr. Gearbaugh said, this has been in the talks for longer than I've been on council. And it is nice to see some forward motion with it now. I just want to make sure that it's a significant financial investment for the city and for the residents. And I just want to make sure that we're thoughtful in that process. So thank you.
Mr. Seal?
I just got back in town this afternoon at 2 o'clock from being gone for a week. So this is all kind of hitting me new tonight. I did pick up my packet late this afternoon and read through it, but a lot of it doesn't make sense to me. So I favor what my colleagues say, that we approach this slowly, that we at least have one work meeting where we can ask questions and learn more about it. And I'll read through this more thoroughly and maybe be in touch with you, Mr. Searles, in the meantime.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Sulek?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Do we know what our other cities are using, like what our neighbors, or do we have any reviews on Neptune? And I mean, I'm really interested in this advanced metering infrastructure. There's obviously a lot of benefits to it. I'd be interested in seeing, you know, reviews and maybe if our other communities in Washtenaw County or further, you know, have some experience with these, you know, with these companies. But definitely to look at a couple others so that we have an idea of what we're looking at and can contrast and compare, because like my colleague said, there's a lot of information here.
Yeah, I will bring some information for council. Washtenaw County's going with Master Meter. They had the same eureka moment that we did.
Okay.
So we'll get you some comparables.
All right, that'd be helpful. Thank you very much.
And Councilmember Kraus.
Just real quick, I don't have anything else to add. Mr. Delorco summed up what I was thinking, and I like the idea of a pros and cons statement too, so that we can see why one would be better. But I did want to thank you. I've noticed since we hired you that you were very forward-thinking with technology, so I appreciate that. We have to leverage it against the other decision-making, you know, calculus, but I do appreciate that you're looking forward-thinking and more technology, so I appreciate that.
Excellent. Let me defer to City Manager O'Toole. I glanced over at you at multiple times during the Q&A here, and it appears as though you took some copious notes. So I think you probably have an idea of what sort of information, additional information, council members are looking for. Between you and Mr. Searles, I'd ask that you gather that information, put it into one document, and disseminate it, perhaps on a Friday as part of your weekly communique. I'd ask that the Clerk's Department enumerate this issue as a discussion item at our next regular meeting, which would be on the 6th of December. We'll have another discussion, and if it warrants a work meeting, we can work to finesse that onto our municipal schedule sometime in late December or early January. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Searles. Appreciate it. Thank you all for your comments this evening. Our last action item of the evening is new business item 21-225, Washtenaw County Emergency Communications Consortium lease renewal. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the November 4th, 2021 memo from Police Chief Hart and to approve or not to approve a 2-year office lease agreement with Washtenaw County Emergency Communications Consortium and to approve or not to approve the 2-year agreement with Washtenaw County Project Oversight Committee and to approve or not to approve a 2-year agreement for contract management services with Mr. Craig Swainson.
Move to acknowledge, approve, and approve.
Okay, so that's a move by CO to acknowledge, approve, and to approve. Mr. Gearbaugh, do you want to second that?
No, I would just want to talk about the
Okay, is there a motion then to second Mr. Seal's motion to acknowledge, approve, three approves, I guess?
I will second that.
Okay, moved by Kraus. A motion on the floor, moved by Seal, seconded by Kraus, to acknowledge, to approve, and to approve. Deputy Chief Radzik, would you like to begin?
Sure. Good evening, council. I just want to say on behalf of the Saline Police Department, it is a humongous benefit to have Craig right here in the office with us. Many times we have to have help with the radios up in dispatch or some of the newer equipment that comes in, and he's always accessible. And if you look at these two, the service contract and the lease agreement, really the only things that have changed are the dates and the amounts. The space that he leases is going to be going up a little bit, and just the storage is moved from upstairs to downstairs where he keeps some of the equipment. And none of the office space encroaches, or the storage space encroaches on anything that we at the police department need to utilize. So I will turn this over to Craig to present and ask. I'll be here to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Swenson, thank you. Maybe for the public's benefit along with council, if you could give maybe a 2-minute overview of what work you do and what the responsibilities are of the Emergency Communications Consortium.
Sure. Washtenaw County has a .2 millage for emergency communications. We provide radios, fire pagers, mass communications, public mass communications, notifications, a number of different offerings to police, fire, EMS, as well as some of the other public service entities in the county. My job, along with an assistant, is to manage all of that. So we pull it all together, we make sure the contracts are in place, and try to interface with about 37 different local entities.
Very good.
That's the overview.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add this time before I open it up for questions, Mr. Swenson?
Just that the city of Saline, as a founding member of the consortium back in the mid-'80s, has always been a great partner with the public safety community. And they have been a leader in this. And also, I would just like to say that I really enjoy working in your police department. I've been around a long time, and it's just a joy to be in there, and I enjoy the people there. So I really appreciate that just from a personal aspect. They're great to work with.
And just so the public knows your background, because that statement is meaningful and significant. You retired as a lieutenant from the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office?
I did, a number of years ago.
Yeah. After many decades of service, distinguished service. That's excellent. Thank you. Mr. Swainson, hang tight. We'll open up for questions for either you or Deputy Chief Radzik, who's filling in for Chief Hart this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Girba, did you have a question? Okay, easy enough. Any questions from the dais? Mr. Seal.
Just to clear up, it's true, is it not, Craig, that your wages are a pass-through from the county?
Yes, that's correct.
So the cost for your being here is not paid by the city itself.
That's correct.
The city's contributing the space.
Correct.
Okay.
Good. Councilmember Kraus?
Thank you. Just to clarify, it is true too that the rent, we get that money back, right? So when it says it's going up, it's not that we pay more or we're out more, we're actually getting more back, is that right?
That's correct. We're paying you.
Right, so,
And
okay.
traditionally, we had been housed at Ann Arbor, the sheriff, HVA, and Pittsfield, and kind of on a free will basis. We felt it was time that we start paying our way. So when we came here to Saline, we are paying Saline rent, and for this 2 years, we upped it by 10%.
Okay, and then just to clarify on what Deputy Chief said, that when our radios go down, which can happen, you have the ability to pick right up with what you have in your, for continuity, correct?
Yes, well, we have backup systems built into it. My function is to help resolve the problem and get them back into service.
Okay, thank you. I will very heartily be supporting this. I know that the benefits that we receive from this far outweigh using space we don't even use. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Very good. Any additional questions or comments? Mr. Del Arco? No? Okay. Back to Mr. Seal.
Just want to add one more thing. during the time after I retired from my service here with the city of Saline, I did, in fact, work with Mr. Swenson on this very same project. And I just wanted everybody to know that that Washtenaw County's radio system is considered a model in the state for how these systems are financed and managed. We were called upon every year to speak at the interoperability conference up in Traverse City to address the rest of the state users on what we've done here in Washtenaw County. So,
Marvelous. Well stated, Mr. Seal. Thank you. Deputy Chief, Mr. Swenson, thank you very much. Is there any additional discussion on the motion? Appears to be none. Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by, let me refer back to my notes here. CO, seconded by Cruz, to acknowledge, to approve, and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move to the discussion portion of our agenda. First up, our commission, committee, and task force reports from council. Actually, I'll start at the opposite end of the day. So let me begin with Councilmember Kraus, and we'll just work our way to Mr. Delorgo.
Thank you. So with Healthcare Task Force, we've been speaking with local groups about dementia-friendly Saline. We visited Story Point, and we're going to be visiting some other places because we're starting to get to the part in our task force where we are trying to figure out the dementia piece of our healthcare for our city, what we can do to make it better, more dementia-friendly. So our meeting on the 22nd, which is here in City Hall at 7, we are opening up. It's always public, but we are encouraging the public, if they have dementia has touched their family, we would like to hear from them. We will also have some speakers about what Saline has to offer. So it might be good both ways for them to give us information and us to give them. So I really encourage folks to come to that meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Kraus. Mr. Camaro Sulak.
Yes. Yes, thank you. So the DEI committee is, we're, as I've said before, coming out with a survey, and there'll be a press release coming in the next day or two. And this survey will provide, very short questions for the community to provide their input and identify areas that need more resources and programs. We want to make sure that the DEI is assisting parts of the city and businesses that need it the most, and we'll also use this for planning for programs for next year. And it's important to note that this survey will be collaborating with Saline area schools. They are coming out pretty soon with their own survey. So there'll be our data and their data that we'll be sharing and collaborating with them. So all of this will be out on the city's website, the DEI website, and social media. And there'll be a link at the end of the press release that will also connect you to the survey. So it should be readily available. And that's the latest and greatest. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Seal?
I have nothing to report.
Councilmember Dillon?
Thank you. From the Parks Commission, again, I would like to congratulate our Green Thumb Award winners and all of the nominees, and thank everyone for participating and keeping Saline so beautiful. And also from the Parks Commission, this Thursday will be our final in our fall series of our Exploring the Park series. It will be this Thursday at 6 p.m. at Teft Park, which is at the Rec Center, and the topic is winter birds. So there is still time to register through SalineRec.com if you are interested in participating.
Thank you. Mr. Gearbaugh, any commission, committee, or task force reports?
Just an update on the Planning Commission. We did a final, preliminary and final approval on Nye's crematorium in the industrial park, so we're looking forward to that coming forward. We were also introduced to the a new drafting of the sign ordinance in terms of recent issues that occurred with language and stuff that can be in signs. There are a number of red lines in that, and we just received it, so we'll be reviewing that too. But I think council, if you have any concerns or issues, to bring that forward at this time, we should be as comprehensive as we want to on this sign ordinance change so that we cover other issues that have arisen. And with that, that's it.
Very good. Mr. DelOrco?
Just briefly, just when I finalized the date for the second tour of the MRF facility at GFL, the contact there wrote to me and stated that they were going to have some technology upgrades on the day that we had been scheduled, threw a wrench into the plan, so they rolled out a couple more dates. December 1st is looking like the best availability for everyone to attend. I wrote back to the contact at GFL late last week to lock that date down. I would encourage anybody that can attend to take advantage of the opportunity to go see the MRF facility. It's an enlightening and fascinating experience to see what actually happens to your goods once they're recycled and how much of it actually gets recycled and how much of it gets circulated back to the landfill because people aren't following rules. It's an excellent learning opportunity. So December 1st is the new date at 10 a.m., and I encourage anyone that can to attend.
Very good. Thank you. About reports or other announcements, again, I'll start with Councilmember Kraus.
No, thank you.
Mr. Kamara-Sulak.
Just real quickly, the Saline Youth Council is taking applications for new members, 8th grade through 12th grade. So feel free to go to the city's website or contact myself or Director Scruggs. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Seal, any reports or announcements?
Nothing at this time.
Ms. Dillon?
So I will piggyback on Mr. Kamara-Sulak and let everyone know that the Parks Commission does have a vacancy on it. And if you'd like further information, feel free to reach out to me directly or to Director Scruggs.
Very good. Director Scruggs, do you want to make the big announcement about our grant from the Connecting Communities program, or certainly happy to make it as well, but since you did most of the work, why don't you talk about, this was a key priority for us, not only to fund this important initiative, but also to derive some funding from a county organization that historically we have not, we have not derived or received the funding that I think was appropriate for the amount that we have contributed over the years. So this is exciting. It checks a number of boxes, but I'll let you share publicly what was disseminated late last week.
Well, that was a drum roll, by the way. So we've applied for the past couple of years to the county for the Connecting Communities. If you recall, 2 years ago, we received $40,000 for design and engineering for the Mill Pond River Walk. And just this past week, we had applied again for construction monies, and we did receive $200,000 that they've awarded us for this next fiscal year. This is a really great, grant that they've awarded us. We're going to try to build on that money through our Rec Passport grants to the DNR and also through the Ralph C. Wilson to try to generate and kind of, piece all these different grant sources together so that we can fund this Riverwalk project. So,
because based on our conversation earlier today, we anticipate probably high six figures, yes, shy of $1 million to complete the project in its totality from Bennett Street to Michigan Avenue.
The parking lot at Mill Pond out to Michigan Ave. Yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good. Excellent news. Thank you for your work on that.
Thank you.
Yep. Look forward to hearing more in the ensuing weeks and months. Mr. Gearbaugh, any other reports or announcements?
You'll be hearing this next couple of meetings, but an early plug for Christmas at the Farm, December 12th and 13th from noon to 4. We hope to have Santa and a couple crafters and just to have a little time to see what the farm looks like at Christmas time since it's that time of year. Thank you.
Very nice. Mr. DelOrco?
Nothing.
Okay. City Manager O'Toole, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us an update on COVID vaccine policy.
As you are all aware, the federal government, OSHA specifically, issued a vaccine mandate for employers over 100 employees. That mandate is currently on hold as it's considered in federal courts. But we, as a community, because we do meet that 100 employee threshold, have tentatively prepared 2 policy options, which have been reviewed by our legal counsel and HR to share with council. One would be a true mandatory policy, and the other would be a mandatory vaccination policy with a weekly testing alternative. Again, because of the federal hold that's currently in place on the OSHA mandate, it is not the advice of our legal counsel to move forward with adoption of either policy, but simply to make you aware of these policy options, and as the current OSHA standards are written, what it would look like in terms of implementation within the city.
Very good.
So I welcome any questions that you have on those policies, or certainly other comments.
Ms. O'Toole, did Rock, Roger, or any of our associates, partners at Dickinson Wright indicate when they thought the Court of Appeals would resolve this issue? No, okay.
No indication. The latest is that they've continued the hold.
Okay. Because I was, well, as you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe we could have a more focused discussion and consider action at one of our December meetings, but time will tell. Are there any questions for the city manager regarding the proposed COVID vaccine policies? No? Okay. Thank you, Colleen. And then the last item is water quality. I wanted to touch on this very briefly. By every measure, the number of water complaints have declined dramatically since comprehensive directional flushing concluded about 3 weeks ago Thursday. However, we are still getting some complaints, and that's, I mean, it's simply not acceptable. The goal is close to zero as possible. And so one of the things that was brought up at our water quality town hall a couple weeks back that I've discussed with the DPW director, Mr. Searles, is the installation of pre-filters in homes and businesses. And I know that was an issue that you were going to research and vet further. Do you have any additional details at this time? If not, I would definitely encourage you and the city manager to gather the appropriate data and so that we can revisit this on December 6th. But I'll give you the opportunity to share some thoughts if you have them.
Well, Mayor, I did look around at a lot of resources. The 5 micron and less filters are available all over the place. It's not a big expense to have them installed, and it really, a lot of it is shown as homeowner do-it-yourself.
Okay.
There is a lasting cost of about $25 to $30 for the filter element, but those filters are specifically for iron and manganese, which I believe would solve a lot of that initial issue when you turn on your water and you get that little bit of rust through it. You can purchase them yourself. There's 4 or 5 different plumbers in the area. I've been sharing our local plumbers with some of our residents that have asked because they don't want to have the issue of any discoloration.
Sure.
And it's price points of under $100 up to $200, and you'll be well covered.
And is it similar to like a furnace filter where you change out a screen on a quarterly or monthly basis, depending on your preference?
Yeah, it would be on the manufacturer's specifications, usually around 60 days or 8,000 gallons.
Okay. Well, maybe between yourself or at a minimum, yourself and the city manager, we can get a few more specifics, because this is something that I would like to share with our constituents. If we really believe that this would help, then that's information that we'll want to disseminate. We've also talked about some sort of rebate or some sort of benefit to our citizens or property owners if they were to invest in this. Go ahead, Colleen.
One thing I will note is, as a municipality, there's an ethical standard that we not recommend any specific suppliers or providers.
Right.
So certainly, Director Searles and I can provide information regarding the benefits broadly of a system like that, but we would be prohibited from making a specific
manufacturer.
Yes. One thing I would add, it would be very beneficial for our purposes to also know whether there was consensus to explore, as you indicated, Mayor Marl, some sort of incentive program or support program for an effort like this.
Okay, very good. Go ahead.
And
Mr.
Mayor,
Schwartz.
also I would like to put it out there, be very cautious not to be oversold. A lot of the companies might want to try and get you a reverse osmosis system or something for your home. we already have one.
Yeah.
It's coming in that way, so.
Right.
Just want to make sure that the residents are not oversold.
Okay. Are there questions for Director Searles regarding the pre-filters, and do you have any thoughts about whether we should explore further some sort of advantageous program that provided some sort of rebate or benefit to property owners, residents who invest in this type of system? Let me begin with Councilmember Kraus.
I would be happy to talk further about some support system that shows good faith on the city's part and
Okay.
yeah.
Yep,
sure.
good. That's clear. Mr. Premier Sulak?
I would agree. I'm interested too. I think it's worth looking into and a very good idea. So let's do this.
Okay, good. Mr. Seal?
Before we start giving away money, I would think that we'd want to develop some pretty good criterion for how we would do that.
Sure. Yep, definitely. At a minimum, as the city manager alluded to, that it would have to be vetted further. I think what we're looking for is consensus to whether you want staff to indeed do that and then maybe come back with a recommendation at a subsequent meeting. Okay. Ms. Dillon?
Yeah, I think it's always worth continuing a conversation. Like Mr. CEO, I do have some concerns about rebate incentives, because then how do we factor in those people that already have systems in place and such? It could become a very slippery slope. The other thing is that I think this isn't going to solve our problem. I'd like to see the water that's coming into the properties a little more clear. And I think we still have some homework to do on our end. The green sand filters, there's a few other things, you know, getting back into a routine of flushing. There's definitely a few other pieces that we need to do. I don't want this to be something that people assume is going to fix all of their problems, because it's going to fix the problems inside of their house. Those problems in the pipes are still going to be there. That's on our end that we need to work on. And so I want to make sure that we're not finding a solution that doesn't address the problem. And so I want to make sure that we can continue the conversation, though. And I am a bit wary about any kind of incentives. I would be more in favor of a bulk purchase type thing, but as the city manager has just alluded, that may not be something we can do. So just sort of exploring the legality of that.
I think that's something, though, that we could explore further. And I'm not beholden to some sort of rebate. I just think there should be some sort of advantageous program implemented, if feasible, to benefit our residents and property owners. I would note, too, to Ms. Dillon's point, I'm keenly aware there is no magic bullet to this particular problem, and it's going to take a variety of steps and subsequent action to continue to improve water quality. But yeah, as I've articulated from this dais publicly and privately, it's a baseline for our residents and business owners. There's a few things that most people expect. They expect competent police officers and firefighters. They expect their potholes to be filled. They expect their garbage to be picked up. And they expect when they flush their toilet that it gets to a sewer plant. And they expect clean water when it comes out of the tap. And so, again, using that as a baseline standard of what everyone expects, we ought to be doing more, and of course we will. Mr. Gearbaugh, thoughts on this particular issue?
I think I have similar agreement with Councilmember Seo and Councilmember Dillon. I believe that trying to invest a lot of money into the replacement and the idea of what we're doing with meters and the inspection of pipes and all those things, because it is going to be an issue between what's in the person's home and some contribution to it. We have a number of homes that still have galvanized piping inside, so even though we might support a filter, it may not be the cause. It could be something else. But I believe we do need to look at, providing the necessary information that would give people options if they wanted to go further than that. But there is still significant work that needs to be done on assessing our system currently, the distribution system, and determining, where do we need to focus maybe some more dollars in terms of resolving those issues that are currently the most contributing factor to this colored water and so forth. I would be more amenable probably to a bulk purchase program if people actually want to do that. The whole thing with these filters is about maintenance and actually doing it. And I know individuals that have put these in and, they haven't looked at it for 2 years. So it really becomes more of an onus on the homeowner to make sure that they do it. And I think our best buy for our dollar is to make sure we solve it from our own distribution system. So Provide the education information, but I would rather see us putting more money to make sure the majority of our water to the majority of our customers is clean 365 days out of the year, and then to address individually what we have to in terms of the individual homeowner.
Mr. Delorco?
Yeah, I would just like to echo everything that Mr. Gearbaugh and Mayor Morrow just said. I have nothing to add to it. Okay. It's exactly how I feel about the issue.
So, City Manager O'Toole, it seems like there is consensus to at least evaluate the issue further of some sort of benefit to our residents and property owners. If we could conclude with certainty that a pre-filter would be beneficial in resolving a number of the complaints that we've received of late. So, obviously, no commitment from the group that they would support something, but I think we ought to work towards developing some sort of program and present it at our next regular meeting if possible, which again is December the 6th. Does that seem reasonable to you?
Certainly.
Okay. And then, Mr. Searles, while I have you here, and the city manager and I discussed this earlier today, but another thing that we can do on the distribution front to improve water quality is to resume monthly flushings of our dead-end lines.
Yes.
When will that begin?
This month.
This month, okay. So one of the things that I asked of the city manager, and between her office, more specifically Sarah Massey, our PR generalist, and you, is because we've now collected contact information for all of our HOAs, condo associations, and neighborhood groups, we want to make sure that we disseminate that out. So not only are we sharing it on the web and on social media, but we actually connect with the neighborhoods that we know have dead-end lines to inform them of the fact that monthly flushing is going to resume and what they should expect immediately prior and subsequent to a flush.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. Why don't you hang tight in the event that there are additional questions for you. Mr. Gearbaugh.
And just because I know a number of individuals were concerned when we had 3 water main breaks on the same day, did we find out any additional information which contributed to those? Was it, some options were weather or other options were pressure change or anything like that. Was there anything that was quite clear and determinate of that?
No, the nature of the breaks suggests that it was the cooling of the water in the towers and in the pipes. Blowholes usually start at the beginning, and all 3 were holes. They were blow out the hole, like somewhere between 3 inches and 4 inches blown out of the bottom and sides of the pipes. That's usually your typical kickoff of the cold weather, and that's what we had.
And were these all older pipes, or was the one on Harris? I thought the one on Harris was fairly.
It's not brand new, but it's not at the end of its life cycle. No.
No, the one on Harris should have been replaced when Harris was resurfaced, which was during the early years of my tenure. So it's less than 10 years old.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The only reason I'm asking that because maybe some of the concerns similar to what I had when my water main broke at my home was that because of the change in the softened water, the hardness wasn't there that used to help maintain some of those holes, and or the small pinholes, which became bigger and bigger. And I was just concerned because of that being such a newer pipe on Harris Street, did we have a bigger concern with that line? So
if it's 10 years old, we have a concern.
Well, yeah, Mr. Gearbaugh and I discussed this, and so I mentioned it casually to the city manager as well, and hopefully everyone knows by now I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't have a tinfoil hat at home. But the statistical probability of 3 mains breaking almost simultaneously and one being less than 10 years old, that troubles me. That concerns me. And I'll just be very frank. It's nothing against you or your staff, of course, but I think we ought to do a little bit more digging to determine precisely how that occurred.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had multiple mains break in a day. We've had probably, I think there were 3 once early in my tenure as mayor that occurred during the course of a 7 to 10 day period. I can't think of any precedents in Saline of 3 in the early morning hours of the same day.
Mr. Fordyce also wanted me to share, I'm not sure if he's just muted and can't speak, that the Harris main was only replaced north of the railroad tracks.
Okay, so when would, do we know the date then of the portion south? That break was closer to the intersection of Harris and Bennett, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be helpful to have the age of that main because a lot of work was done on that as a result of storm sewage, so maybe we did not deal with water mains at that time.
I was under the impression that that main was replaced in 2000 or 2001, something like that, last time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
That
we're
it
thinking
was
too, so.
20 years old-ish.
Maybe you can just do a little bit of digging. Don't spend a whole lot of time, but, you know, it is what it is. I can't change yesterday. It's just, it's, the statistical probability of that happening is negligible, and I just think it warrants a little bit further vetting. I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you.
Anything else about water quality? No? Director Searles, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further to be brought forward under the discussion portion of tonight's agenda, we'll proceed to the second public comment period. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments from those in the audience this evening? Please.
$1985.
You think that's when that was replaced?
Yep.
Okay.
That's my comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair enough. If we can ask a follow-up question of you, would that have been an Abe Mumford project, and would that have run from about Bennett to Michigan Ave?
That ran all the way from South Harris
Okay.
to Bennett.
Okay.
But if it was 85, it was Mumford.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Eric. Deputy Clerk Ritchie, did we receive any comments in advance of tonight's meeting or during tonight's meeting in which the individual wanted their remarks read at this time?
No, sir.
Very good. Then is there any other business to come before Saline City Council this evening? Please,
Mayor, may I just make one quick comment?
please.
Thank you. Today in our consent agenda, there was the reporting of our CVTRS. And I wanted to just make comment for the public that I encourage people to look at it. The city provides dashboard graphics that have a wealth of information. It makes it very easy to understand the dollars that come in, the dollars that go out. And so I just encourage everyone, that document is available online. There's a hard copy always at City Hall. It's a great resource. So just letting everyone know it's there.
Nothing further. All right, our visioning session, our first one will begin on the 18th. The second is on the 23rd. And if you'll recall, the session on the 23rd is open to the public. I would ask that council members using their various platforms and modes of communication disseminate and promote that, especially amongst your board, commission, committee, or task force colleagues, because we definitely benefit from having strong participation from our business owners, property owners, and constituents. So again, the visioning session on the 23rd is open to the public, and we strongly encourage public participation. Even if you can only stay for a portion of the event, your comments, suggestions, and concerns are welcomed and appreciated.
And the time again, Mayor?
That one starts at, what time does it start?
6 p.m.?
6 p.m., okay, 6 p.m.
Both dates?
Yes.
I think we try to wrap up the public engagement session in about 2 hours. So the latest you would be there would be 8:30. But again, if you have to leave after an hour, after 45 minutes, that's fine. We welcome you to come and share your comments and concerns. And then our next regular meeting will be on December the 6th with a work meeting to discuss utility rates, equipment revolving fund, and then a regular session at 7 o'clock. Again, please note that work session begins at 5:30, not 6 o'clock. And at this time, unless there's anything further, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:36 p.m.
So moved.
Moved by Gearba, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dillon. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.